My name's Lucas. I'm 28. And I found out my mom drained my savings account the day I was supposed to pay the down payment on my first apartment. I've been saving since I was 16. Every side gig, every holiday bonus, even some scholarships I got in college, I put it all in a joint account with her name on it. She said it would be safer that way, since I was still a minor back then. And I guess I just never thought to change it after. I trusted her. She's my mom. She helped raise me alone after my dad left, and I always believed she had my back, no matter what. Turns out, that account wasn't as safe as I thought. Because when I sat in front of the banker to make the transfer, he politely told me there wasn't enough to complete it. I laughed at first, thinking it had to be some kind of error. Then I logged in, and the number staring back at me made my stomach drop. I must have refreshed the app 3 times. I checked the date, the name on the screen, everything. But it was right there. I was missing over $40,000. It felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. I just sat there frozen, while the banker kept asking if I wanted to reschedule. I told him I'd come back and left the building without saying much. I walked a few blocks before pulling out my phone and calling my mom. I didn't even know what I was going to say. My hands were shaking. When she picked up, I tried to stay calm. I just asked, "Did you take money out of our joint account?" She didn't even pause. She said, "Yeah, I meant to tell you. I needed to help Ethan with his store." That was it. No apology. No warning. Just a casual, "I meant to tell you," like she'd forgotten to remind me to take out the trash. I stopped walking. I literally froze on the sidewalk. People were brushing past me, cars honking, but all I could hear was that one sentence. She needed to help Ethan. Ethan is my half-brother. We share the same mom, but not the same dad. He's 24, never kept a job longer than a year, and always had some new idea that he swore would take off. A sneaker reselling business, then crypto, then custom phone cases. Now apparently, a coffee shop. And my mom thought it was a good idea to clean out my account, my savings, without asking, so he could give entrepreneurship another shot. I asked her, "Why didn't you just tell me? That was everything I had." She replied, "You'll make more. You've always been responsible." Ethan needed a chance. I swear to God, I almost dropped the phone. I didn't go home that night. I drove around for hours, ended up crashing on my friend Caleb's couch. I didn't even tell him what happened right away. I just said something came up with the apartment. But lying there staring at the ceiling, I kept thinking about every time I skipped going out, every extra shift I picked up. Every time I told myself it would all be worth it when I had my own place. And it was gone. Not stolen by a stranger, but taken by my own mother. And for what? For a brother who can't even hold down a job for 6 months. It wasn't just about the money. It was about what it meant. That all those years of being the dependable one, the one who didn't cause trouble, who figured stuff out on his own, that none of it mattered. She still chose him. And she didn't even think I deserved to be told. The next morning, I drove back to her house. I wasn't planning on making a scene. I just needed to look her in the eye and ask what the hell she was thinking. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, but not nervous. Just kind of irritated, like I'd shown up at a bad time. I walked in, sat down at the kitchen table, and asked her again, "Why did you take the money without telling me?" She sighed, sat across from me, and gave me this whole speech about how families support each other, how Ethan was struggling, and how she thought I'd understand because I was always the strong one. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She talked like I should be proud that my money went to helping someone else. Like I should be grateful for being so stable that I could afford to take a hit. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was stare at her. What made it worse was that she kept defending him. "Ethan just needs a fresh start," she kept saying. "He's trying really hard this time." As if I hadn't been trying for years. As if that money didn't represent years of discipline, sacrifice, and planning. I asked her why she didn't just take out a loan or help him herself. She said, "I didn't have enough in my own account, and I knew you wouldn't say yes if I asked." That was the moment everything flipped. She knew I wouldn't agree, so she just took it. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. A calculated one. And the way she said it, so flat, so unapologetic, told me she didn't even think she did anything wrong. I left without saying much after that. I think she thought I was being dramatic, that I'd cool off and come around eventually. But I wasn't just angry, I was numb. I went back to my apartment and sat on the floor for hours, trying to figure out what to do next. I couldn't afford the down payment anymore, which meant I'd lose the unit. I'd spent months getting paperwork together, negotiating the price, imagining what it would feel like to finally have my own place. All of that, gone. I emailed the agent and told them I wouldn't be moving forward. I didn't explain why. What was I supposed to say? That my mom cleaned out my savings to bankroll my brother's fantasy cafe? That I got blindsided by the one person I thought would never screw me over? The days that followed were a blur. I didn't pick up her calls. She texted me once or twice, just saying we should talk, but never actually apologizing. And then Ethan called me. That part still pisses me off. He called me, acting all upbeat, saying how he was so pumped about the shop and how he wanted me to swing by sometime. I asked him if he even knew where the money came from. He got quiet. Then he said something like, "Mom told me she had it handled. I didn't ask too many questions." That told me everything I needed to key in. I started talking to my bank a few days later, just to see if there was anything I could legally do. But since it was a joint account, they basically told me I was out of luck. No fraud, no unauthorized withdrawal, no legal recourse. She had full access, just like I did. I remember sitting in that little office, the banker trying to be polite while telling me I'd basically handed her the knife and she chose to cut me with it. I couldn't even argue. I'd left it that way for years, never thinking I'd need protection from my own mother. That was the part that kept me up at night. Not that I'd made a mistake, but that she knew I trusted her and still did it anyway. And she didn't even hide it. That was probably the most brutal part of all this. She didn't even feel the need to lie. Eventually, I told a few close friends what had happened. Their reactions were all the same, disbelief, then anger. One of them asked me if I thought she'd pay it back. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the idea felt so foreign. My mom never once mentioned returning the money. Not even a part of it. Not even over time. It's like, in her head, this was just a family favor. A little redistribution of wealth. She really believed I'd be fine, that I'd bounce back, that I'd understand. And maybe that's the story she tells herself to sleep at night. But the truth is, I stopped being her safety net the second she decided I was less important than Ethan's next big plan. I didn't grow up rich. That money was years of sacrifice. And she tossed it like it was pocket change. About 2 weeks after everything went down, I finally agreed to meet her for coffee. I think I just wanted to see if she'd own up to it in person. She picked a spot near her house and acted like it was just another normal day. I sat down, looked her in the eye, and waited. She started with small talk, asked how work was going, if I'd talked to Aunt Carla lately. I cut her off and asked again, clearly this time, "Do you actually think what you did was okay?" She gave me this look like I was being too emotional, too cold. She said, "I didn't think it would become such a big thing. I really thought you'd understand." That word again. Understand. I wanted to flip the table. I told her it was a big thing. I told her she killed a future I'd been building for almost a decade. And she just sat there, sipping her coffee, like I was overreacting. No remorse. No guilt. Just that same tone like I was being difficult, like I was the problem for not being more generous. At one point, I asked her if the roles were reversed. If I had taken her money and given it to a friend without telling her, what would she have done? She didn't answer. She just looked out the window and said, "That's different." I swear, I almost laughed right there. Of course it's different when it's her. She's always had a blind spot for Ethan. I used to think it was just favoritism, but it's more than that. It's like she sees him as this fragile thing that constantly needs saving. And me? I was the one she leaned on. The one who always figured it out. She never really checked to see if I was okay, just assumed I'd manage. And I did. But at what cost? Sitting across from her that day, I realized something that hit me like a punch to the ribs. She didn't feel bad because, in her mind, I could afford to be betrayed. Like it was a luxury only the strong could afford. That's the kind of logic she lives in. After that meeting, I stopped trying to explain myself. I didn't block her or anything, but I pulled way back. I stopped answering texts right away, didn't return her calls unless it was something urgent. I needed space, not just from her, but from the whole dynamic that had been quietly eating away at me for years. Growing up, I always thought we were close. It was just me and her for a long time, and I admired how she worked 2 jobs and still managed to keep everything together. But now I wonder how much of that bond was just survival. We needed each other back then, and once I started standing on my own, she shifted all her energy to Ethan. And maybe I get it. Maybe she felt like I didn't need her anymore. But there's a huge difference between stepping back and selling me out. And I honestly don't think she sees that line. I don't think she ever has. A few weeks later, my aunt called me out of the blue. She said she heard about what happened, though she didn't say how. She just said, "You know that money was yours, right?" That wasn't okay. It caught me off guard. I hadn't told anyone in the family. Turns out my mom had been talking to people, spinning it like I'd gotten upset over a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. A misunderstanding. She literally drained an account behind my back. My aunt offered to loan me part of what I'd lost, just to get back on track, but I told her no. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about what it meant and what it revealed. Taking help to fix it felt like covering a wound without cleaning it first. I wanted to sit with it, feel the full weight of it, and let it change whatever it needed to change inside me. Because at that point, I knew this wasn't just a one-time betrayal. It was the moment that broke the version of my family I thought I had. I started going to therapy not long after that. Not because of the money, specifically, but because I couldn't stop replaying everything. The whole situation cracked something open in me that I hadn't really faced before. Like how many times I'd brushed things off growing up, how often I'd swallowed feelings to keep the peace, how many small betrayals I'd rationalized because she was doing her best. But this one I couldn't rationalize. I couldn't bury it. My therapist asked me, early on, if this was the first time I felt like I wasn't chosen. And without even thinking, I said no. It just came out. Because yeah, it wasn't the first time. It was just the first time it was this obvious. This undeniable. She'd always put Ethan first, just not this loud. This publicly. This recklessly. And once I admitted that out loud, it was like everything else started making more sense. I remembered moments I hadn't thought about in years. Like the time I got accepted into a competitive summer program in high school and she couldn't come to the ceremony because Ethan had a soccer game. Or when I bought my first car with my own money and she barely looked at it, too busy helping Ethan pick out furniture for his new apartment that he couldn't afford alone. Or how every time I brought up something I wanted to do, she'd somehow bring it back to him. Well, your brother's going through a lot right now. Your brother could use your help. Can you be patient with him? And I always was. I was patient. I was understanding. I was the responsible one, the solid one. And it turns out that just made it easier for her to take me for granted. The realization didn't come all at once. It showed up slowly, like pieces of a puzzle I didn't know I was working on. But once they started falling into place, it was impossible to unsee. One afternoon, I drove past the cafe Ethan opened with my money. I hadn't planned to. I was on my way to meet someone and saw it on the corner. It had one of those fake rustic signs, the kind of place with overpriced lattes and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. I parked a block away and just watched from the car. Ethan was behind the counter, talking to someone, smiling like his life was finally working out. And I sat there wondering if he ever really thought about where that life came from. If he ever lost sleep knowing that the roof over his head and the espresso machine he was using were bought with someone else's future. I'll never know. And honestly, I don't care anymore. That place could burn down or blow up into a franchise, and it wouldn't make a difference to me. Because the damage was already done before he ever brewed his first cup of coffee. A few people have asked me if I'll ever forgive her. And I don't know. Some days, I think maybe I could. Not because she earned it, but because I'm tired of carrying the weight. Other days, I remember how calm she was when she said it. I meant to tell you, and the anger comes right back. It's not like I want revenge. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. Like my work, my effort, my future meant something to the one person I never expected to hurt me. And the truth is, I don't think I'll ever fully get that from her. Not because she's incapable of love, But because she's so deep in her version of what's fair that she can't even see how badly she screwed up, she still thinks I'll come around. That eventually I'll visit the cafe and sit down for a coffee and act like nothing happened. And maybe that's the saddest part. She doesn't realize that she didn't just take money. She took trust. And once that's gone, there's nothing left to build on. I've been slowly rebuilding. Not the money, that'll take time, but the sense of control over my own life. I opened a new account, in my name only this time. I started putting money back in, little by little, every paycheck. At first it felt pointless, like I was starting over at the bottom of a well I just climbed out of. But over time, it became something else. A reminder that this time, no one else had access. No one else could decide where it went. It sounds stupid, but logging into that new account and seeing even a small balance feels good. Like I reclaimed something. Like I took my life back from people who didn't respect what it took to build. The apartment I lost? It stings, yeah, but I'll get another. And next time, it'll be all mine, with no strings, no shared names on the account, and no one waiting to use my success as a backup plan. Every once in a while, my mom still texts me. Holidays, birthdays, little things like, hope you're doing okay, or let me know if you want to talk. I read them. I don't always respond. It's not that I want to cut her off forever. I don't even know if I could. But I've learned that keeping someone in your life doesn't mean giving them the same access they had before. Some people you love from a distance, because loving them up close costs too much. That's where I'm at with her. I've accepted that she's never going to say what I need to hear. I'll probably never get an apology. She'll never admit that she betrayed me because, to her, it wasn't betrayal. It was just a family decision. And that's why I keep my distance. Because once someone starts calling theft a favor, you don't know what they'll justify next. I've talked about it more openly lately. Not with family, but with friends, people I trust. At first, I was embarrassed, like it reflected poorly on me that I let it happen. But I've realized how common it actually is. People being betrayed by the ones they thought would protect them. It's not always about money. Sometimes it's support, sometimes respect, sometimes just basic decency. What happened to me is just a more obvious version of something a lot of people carry quietly. And telling the story, saying it out loud, helps chip away at that shame. Because it wasn't my fault. I didn't make her take that money. I didn't ask to be the one who always holds everything together while someone else gets the help. And if you've been in my shoes, or anywhere close, I want you to hear that too. It wasn't your fault. Sometimes I still wonder what would have happened if she'd just asked. If she'd sat me down and explained the situation, told me Ethan needed help, and they didn't have anywhere else to turn. Would I have said yes? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not 40 grand, but something. And if she had been honest, I might have even respected that. But she didn't give me that chance. She took the choice away from me, and that's what I can't let go of. That's the line she crossed, and I don't know if there's a way back from that. She made me feel like I didn't matter in my own life. And even if we patch things up one day, even if we manage to sit down for a holiday dinner without the weight of this hanging in the air, I'll always remember the day I walked into the bank ready to take the next step in my life, and walked out realizing I'd been completely betrayed by the person I trusted the most. There was a moment, maybe a week after it all happened, when I sat alone in my car at night and tried to convince myself it wasn't that big a deal. I kept repeating things like, it's just money, or you'll make it back, or she didn't mean harm. I think part of me needed to believe that, because accepting the truth meant facing a version of her I didn't want to see. The version that could smile at me, ask about my day, and still be hiding the fact that she'd already decided my plans weren't as important as someone else's. That night, I stopped trying to minimize it. I sat in the silence and let it hurt. Really hurt. Because it did. And pretending otherwise didn't make me mature or strong. It just made me dishonest with myself. That was the first night I stopped making excuses for her. Ethan's business is still open. I hear things through the grapevine. My cousin went there once and said it looked decent, had good branding, a decent crowd. Good for him, I guess. But I'll never step foot in there. Not out of spite, but because I know what that place cost me. Not just in dollars, but in what it broke inside me. If I walked in there, I'd see shelves and chairs and espresso machines, and all I'd think about is the apartment I didn't get, the life I had to delay, the version of myself that had to be rebuilt from scratch. I don't care if that cafe wins awards or goes bankrupt. I just don't want to be anywhere near it. That chapter of my life doesn't get to have a place in my routine. It stays in the past, where it belongs. I've thought a lot about what justice would even look like in this situation. There's no courtroom for this. No clean resolution. She didn't break the law, just the trust. And trust doesn't get measured in contracts or bank statements. It gets measured in silence. In all the moments you choose not to call. In all the things you used to share but don't anymore. In the empty space where connection used to live. That's where the real consequence lives. I haven't cut her off completely, but I don't tell her about my plans anymore. I don't update her on the good stuff. She doesn't get to be part of that. When I get my next apartment, she'll find out the same way a stranger would. Maybe through someone else, maybe through a photo. But it won't come from me. Not out of spite, but because I've learned that some things are safer when they stay mine. Sometimes I wonder if she ever really saw me as my own person, or just as a tool she could lean on. Someone who made her life easier, more stable. It's hard to say. But I know one thing now, I'm not that tool anymore. I'm not here to be the fallback plan. I'm not here to carry the load so someone else can chase pipe dreams without consequence. I've got my own life to live, and from now on, I'm the one guarding the door. That's something this whole mess gave me. Not closure, exactly, but clarity. I see her more clearly. I see myself more clearly. And even though I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, I don't regret knowing the truth. It forced me to grow in a way I didn't expect. Painful, yeah, but necessary. The funny thing is, sometimes I catch myself remembering little things, like how she used to make my lunch every day in high school, or how she stayed up with me the night before my SATs just to quiz me on vocabulary. Those memories don't go away. And they don't match the woman who drained my savings without asking. That contradiction is what makes all of this so hard. Because I know she can be loving. I know she has been there for me in the past. But when someone crosses a certain line, all the good memories get tangled up in the bad ones. You start wondering which version is real, or if the good stuff was just a setup for the letdown. I don't want to live in that confusion anymore. I want to move forward knowing exactly where I stand. She's not the enemy. She's just not who I thought she was. And I've learned that it's okay to love someone from a distance, with boundaries that didn't need to exist before, but do now. A few days ago, I finally deleted the contact for the apartment agent I lost. That felt weirdly heavy. Like I was letting go of a version of myself I really liked, the one who thought he was finally building his life the way he planned. But I've got a new agent now, and I'm saving again. Slowly, carefully, this time on my own terms. And it feels different now. There's a sense of ownership, not just financially, but emotionally. I know what it costs to trust the wrong person, and I'm not in a rush to make that mistake again. The next place I buy, it's going to be mine in every sense of the word. No shared accounts, no silent risks, no false security. Just me, building from the ground up. And maybe that's the most solid kind of foundation there is, the one you pour yourself, after everything else is cracked. People assume betrayal comes with shouting, dramatic exits, screaming matches. But sometimes it comes in a sentence said too casually, in money moved silently, in someone you trust looking at you like your future was negotiable. That's what happened to me. No fireworks, no blowout. Just a quiet moment in a bank where I realized I'd been cut out of my own story. And nothing's been the same since. My relationship with my mom didn't explode, it faded. I stopped looking to her for guidance. I stopped assuming she had my best interests in mind. And I think, in a weird way, she still doesn't get it. She sees the distance but doesn't understand what caused it. Or maybe she does and just tells herself a different version of the story so she can live with it. Either way, I'm done explaining it to her. This didn't end with a confrontation or some big redemption arc. No apology. No magical reconciliation. It just ended quietly and without closure. One day, the trust was there. The next day, it wasn't. And that's the part that still catches me off guard sometimes. How fast something can fall apart when it was already cracked beneath the surface. People ask me what I'll do if she ever tries to make it right. I don't have an answer. I'm not waiting for her to. Life kept moving, and so did I. But every now and then, when I log into that new account and see those slow-growing numbers, I remind myself, this time, it's mine. All mine. And no one else touches it. Not again.